it is a wonderful tourist location. But how much more even the church, as we're seeking to share Jesus, before people hear us talk about Jesus, they will know we are Christians and followers of Jesus by our love. We must train service personnel to be friendly. When people come to the community engagement initiatives, we have to secure demographic data from every attendee. Then after we get their name, their address, their phone number, their email address, their social media address, we have to send them communication. Send a letter and or an email to every attendee within 2 days of their visit. So if someone comes for food distribution, it's important, friends of mine, that you get their contact information, and that after the day of the food distribution, for example, that you send them a nice email, send them a nice note to let them know that you're thankful that you met them and that they were able to be serviced at your church. That is critical and goes a long way, because you're building relationship. When Jesus was on this earth, understand, in order to preach, in order to teach, in order to heal as he did, he had to establish relationship. Relationship is so very important. When people come, after you're friendly, after you send them written communication, it can be electronic as well. May I encourage you to build a database of attendees, all those who have come, with the intention to invite to future worship experiences, events, etc. As I've shared with you previously, with the community outreach initiatives we've had here at the Oakwood University Church, at each initiative, we get addresses. We take those names, we take those addresses, we put them in a database system, and we keep them there. So when it's time for the revival, time for the Revelation seminar, time for tent evangelism, or whatever medium of evangelism we have, we already have a pool of names. We already have a list of names that we can engage, in addition to whatever our Bible workers and members go out and solicit on their own. Here's an example again of the demographic data needed. Name, address, city, state, zip code, telephone, and email address, and social media address. You also have to promote your community initiatives. How do we promote? Virtual worship. We all are engaged in that right now. There's nothing wrong with saying at virtual worship, we're going to have a food distribution on Tuesday. Through your support groups you might have. You might also have e-newsletters or your church website, social media, direct mail, or even billboards if that's financially feasible. I also want to encourage you, be intentional about building your church calendar to reflect community engagement service initiatives. Don't just think it's going to happen, but build your calendar to reflect intentional community engagement service initiatives. I tell people all the time, we don't want to just build a sabbatical calendar, what's going to take place on Sabbath. What we also must do is build a calendar to reflect intentional community engagement service initiatives. What are some of the benefits to community engagement? Number one, helping people. Remember, we do good to do good, we do well to do well. Number two, branding. Within the community, people begin to understand this is the Seventh-day Adventist Church. This is your specific church. The next thing, it heightens awareness in your community. It also creates a positive community influence. And then most importantly, it lends to evangelism and church growth. Millennials, millennial involvement. We hear a lot that we must do something for our young people. We must engage our young people. That is a benefit to community engagement, including and involving millennials, persons born between 1981 and 1996. According to the Pew Research Center, which is a research center for churches, millennials are a generation that's all about change. While they can come off entitled by always demanding change, making positive changes in the world isn't a bad thing. Thanks to growing up in an age with more media immersion, millennials, were able to see more about the good and the bad in the world. They likely heard their parents talking about changes that needed to be made. As a result, they're volunteering more and more. This is great news for your church. Millennials actually want to volunteer. Whether it's in Jamaica, whether it's in the United States, young adults want to engage and volunteer in some type of ministry. They may not say, I want to be a church officer, but they will engage in community projects in your church. They may not be able to commit for the entire year or 2 years, but you could have a project, a special project in your church that's going on maybe for a month or maybe a quarter, and millennials will be more than happy to get involved in community work. Millennials, according to the Pew Research Center, 90% of millennials believe they can make the world better. 49% of millennials are optimistic things can get better, explaining why their volunteer numbers are growing. 46% of millennials are more likely to volunteer if it's a social cause they closely identify with. And then over 70 millennials gave at least an hour of their time per week to a charitable cause. Millennials may tend to financially give less than previous generations, but this is often due to higher amounts of debt and fewer paying jobs. College debt may hold them back, but they still want to help, even if it means giving time over money. Now, I'm not suggesting that they shouldn't return their tithe and give an offering. They should. But we are finding in the research that many of them, in addition to returning their tithe and giving an offering, many of them will say, well, I don't have the money to give great big contributions for special projects, but I can donate my time to help in the special project. Community engagement. Why partner? When we talk about partnering with community engagement, I want to be very clear that in partnership, it means that you may not be able to do it alone, but you need to partner with another church, partner with a social agency, because you may not have the resources to do it alone, but you can partner with another church, partner with another agency to help engage your community. Why partner? Limited human, economic, and physical plant resources. In the United States, most of our churches are relatively small. Most churches are not like the Oakwood Church or Berean Church. The median church size in the United States is 75 people, and the median church age is 73 years. This means that half of the churches in the United States are smaller. Half of them are smaller than 75 people, and half are larger than 75 people, and half of the churches are younger than 73 years, and half are older than 73 years. In the United States, the American church primarily consists of small, established, or aging congregations. Now, I don't know what the demographic